So I'm Claire Fontorlu. I'm a paper conservator and I work at the National Archive of the Netherlands as conservator advisor for the digitalization department. Yeah. Here are the National Archive of the Netherlands. Let me introduce you with that. We have two locations, one in The Hague, one in Emmen. And here are some figures for you to know. We have 137 linear kilometers, 50 million photographs, 1.6 million visitors on the website. So this was. I'm here today to reflect on the evolution of large-scale digitalization at the first time and the first-line conservation within the National Archive of the Netherlands. But let me first introduce you to the actual department of the digitalization. We have three main digitalization efforts, what we call the Digital Task Central Governmental, which is a governmental assignment. This represents 1,700 meters per year, approximately 7.5 million of scans, coming from 60% for the National Archive collection and 40% from regional archives collection. Then we started a second project because that was not enough in 2023. And this is a 3 years project base with partnerships called War in Court. And it's based on the archive of the Special Court of Justice following World War II. This represents in total 3,500 meters and 32 million scans. And should end in 26-27. Then we have the scanning on demand. So it's from individual researcher, citizen, research institute. And this represents approximately 3,000 requests per year, but it's still growing. We see that more and more people are asking for it. We have two other streams present in our department. The International Heritage Cooperation, where we intentionally help to digitize, and scans in the reading room made by customer, which are approximately 275,000 scans per year. The timeline. Before reflecting with you on the lesson we learned, I would like to recount how digitalization started at the National Archive. In 2013, the Dutch government decided to have 10% of the governmental archive digitized within 15 years. Not going to happen, but that's they thought. And in 2015, the digitization department was created, aiming to scan up to 1,300 meters per year. So the scan street was in-house with 18 scanners. And from that moment on, we are talking about mass digitalization, where speed, time, and of course budget are crucial. In 2017, 300 meters yearly was added with a market party. And in 2023, as I said, the project War in Court was launched, adding another 1,000 yearly meter. So what began as a project-based task has since evolved into a large digitalization department, and though with a steady budget and responsible for digitization up to 2,700 linear meters for the coming 2 years. This is the workflow in place when we started, when digitalization was still project-based. Selection of the archive. Oh yeah, let me try that. Yeah. So here's the selection of the archive that will be scanned, then the planning, then the transport, because we outsourced the scanning, and quality control of the scan, publication online, transfer to the scan of the e-depot and publication online. So yeah, we can all agree that is a quite basic workflow. And here's now, it's a bit of a change. The first column here is represent the preparation. This is really crucial for our department, for our planning. I will develop that later. Each collection, so the choice of the collection to be scanned is based on multiple criteria. Most consulted, most of least fragile, the community are rich, etc. Each collection is divided per 50-meter batch. So some collection can have 10 batches, some other only 1. Then we have 2 different type of survey that we perform on every batch of each collection. The first one concerns the accessibility of the collection, and the second one regards the condition of the collection and its ability to be scanned. It's here. I will develop this step thoroughly later. And after the survey, we are back to the old workflow, the planning, the transport, the scanning, the quality control of the scan, and the e-depot and publication on the website. So one will think that our work here is done, but no, here come several steps from online publication and accessibility. The goal is to improve the navigation and search option to our digital collection, such as scan navigation, handwritten text recognition, creating indexes, and document qualification. But I would like to drag your attention to this. Here is where it's first-line conservation. Let's move to the first-line evolution. So during the kickoff and the pilot of the project, there was no first-line conservation involved. One of the reasons we can think of is, other of course that no conservator was involved in the decision-making, is maybe that the collection chosen to begin with was quite an easy archive, let's say. It was easy to scan, it was cotton rag paper, it was bounded, it was a pristine condition, so there was no conservation needed even if we wanted to, and could be scanned really easily. But it became soon clear that not all archives would be in such good condition and that simple to scan. So from 2015, first-line conservation and conservation advisor was part of the workflow. But how? We introduce the survey of the collection condition based. As I said, each collection is divided 50-meter batch. So we randomly pick one inventory number per meter and we look at it and fill it in the Excel document, as known as the Bible for us. So we look at the form of the archive, the thickness, is it bounded or not? Is it single or double-sided? Because this will have an impact on the amount of scan, so on the speed, so on the planning, so on the budget. Yeah, so it's good to know. Then we look at the complication we can expect. Do we have seals? Do we need to remove staples? Do we have a historical core? Do we have blotting sand? All of this to know up front, and will have also can have also an impact on the scanning. And then we look at the damage. What type, what amount of treatment are needed? Do we need to have to flatten, to make some repairs, to have some dry cleaning? And after that, we can set up a report with written instruction for first-line conservation and scanning. This survey, this step, helps us to have an estimation concerning the duration of the first-line conservation, and that is really a crucial part in our planning. First-line conservation, we had to define and make clear for us what we intended by first-line conservation, where first-line conservation begins and stops, and where conservation begins. Our aim with first-line conservation is to minimize the risk of damage on the original while scanning. So that means that we only repair unstable damage. To make all information readable. That means also that we're going to treat only where the information is, and to minimize the risk of damage to the glass plate. For example, and of course, it is to stay within the allocated budget and planning. So every treatment will be minimal. The definition, the frame, how minimal it should be, all resulted in our guideline for first-line conservation. So having the first-line conservation defined allowed us to make a clear separation between what can be done with our department and budget, and what needs to be handed over to the collection department and to their budget. So, of course, it was a long discussion, and sometimes it's still coming back, and we still have discussion about that. But it gave us the option also to deselect inventory number of the selection if scanning appears to be too challenging due to material condition of the physicality of the object. All the picture you can see, we are not going to be treating it in first-line conservation. All the objects will be treated and scanned like this. So this is minimal. All the tears are stable. So this will be scanned like this, yeah. So you can think, thanks to our workflow and guidelines, all the collection and project look alike, if only. Working on a large-scale digitization project demands flexibility and sometimes even creativity. Despite the speed which is necessary, we need to ensure safe practice for our collection by constantly questioning our own workflow and guidelines. So I would like to discuss with you about the lesson we learned over the years from two questions we have. The first one is how to implement different conservation techniques to non-conservators. This is for me the challenge number one. In the Netherlands, there is no, or at least not yet, first-line conservation training, which means that first-line conservation is performed by people with no conservation background. I am, of course, dreaming of a team, having a team of paper conservators, but it's not going to happen. So how do we deal with the situation? First-line conservation is currently outsourced for us, and both studios that are working for us do not have a team of paper conservators. So they both have to train their own employee. And one of our lessons learned, and really important for us, is our first and non-negotiable requirement is to have a team coordinator who is a paper conservator. So that is not always to fulfill, but by doing so, at least we have someone in the studio that has the knowledge, the background, and keeps short communication with us, and we can speak the same language, the conservation language. And because, yes, they have reports, we write instruction, what to do, how to do it, but we haven't only done a survey. So there are, of course, things we have missed and haven't seen. The only other answer is the training, of course, training and knowledge. Our guidelines, so I mentioned before, are translated in work instruction. Every person performing first-line conservation needs to know them. And then you have we invest a lot in training, so when someone starts, but also continuously we try during the year. And this goes also for the scans and for the studio about handling, which also you raise the question to them that they know when we cannot scan. So short communication, and in order for the training to be sufficient, you need to have a steady team, and that is not always easy to have. So to build up the knowledge, it's easier. But here I have an ethical question. How far do you train? How far till which method do you go with someone who has no conservation background? How far does it stop? If we take Aragolink example, safe way to locally treat is removeable tissue, pre-coated tissue, and DMT use. But is it okay to let no paper conservator learning and using this technique? How far do you train them? I personally struggle with this, and I have no answer, but I'm happy to share with you my dilemma. The second one is how to balance tight budget and planning against collection care and safe practices. This is a 50 meter, is going under first-line conservation every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks we have 50 meters that needs to be treated. That's what they hoped in the management, because when you make your survey, some collection can, some not. And they scan 50 meters in 2 weeks. So you can see, yeah, easy, workflow is made, 50 meters, 2 weeks, but it's just a question of planning. Yeah, but how do we deal with anomalies? Two different collections can be, no breaking news for paper conservator, but for sometimes management team is important to remind collection can be really different one to another. They are both 50 meters, and we made the survey, and now we know how long. So for the first one, we can have like 377 hours for treatment, and the other one will be 7,200 hours of treatment. So then, yeah, it's not the same. So you can plan up your planning upfront. You have an upfront knowledge thanks to the survey. You can allow us the proactive in terms of adjustment in budget or in time. You can also look at solution together with other departments or via project funding. Worst case, you decide not to scan the collection. But again, you plan that upfront, so there's no impact on your planning. As a conclusion, I would say that digitalization is often seen as the future. It's wonderful. Scans from our collection will be provided to researchers all around the world without risk for our collection. It's also seen as a prevention measure, and that is true. But we should not forget the physical object. The main specificity of large-scale digitization are the speed, the volume, and of course the budget. The volume combined with the responsibility for the cultural heritage under our care is what makes it challenging and interesting. And I thank you for your attention.